second legitimate reason to hate Connor Kent. Cool. As the title indicates, I'm not really doing much for this video, mostly because it's a story that everyone and their dog is familiar with. I was originally gonna do a dramatization of one of my favorite stories of all time, well, fairy tale things, but I decided the time is not right now and I need a lot of work for that, so I would do it at the more appropriate time. So, please enjoy my short rendition of Cinderella. Now, I know what you're thinking, Cinderella? Oh my gosh, that story is so done to death. To which I say, no duh, I just said everybody and their dog knows the story. But, you most likely don't know it the way I tell it. Except that most of my viewership consists of friends and family, so there's a big chance that they have heard of it. Oh well, still my show, I do what I want. And so, let us begin. Now, the start is basic. Cinderella lived in a castle-type place with her parents, until her beloved mother came down with the terrible death by origin story central. Her last request was to be buried under a tree, I think, or is that another story? The point is, her dying words were to her only daughter, whom she told, and I quote, "If you work hard and do good things will happen to you." Mom, that's kind of vague. Well, blind people can only talk in vague statements. So eventually the father gets remarried to a woman who has two brats of her own, and he's thinking that she probably knows something about child rearing. Unfortunately, she's also sadistic. Now, I'm guessing you think he bites it eventually too. Nope, he's just kind of a pushover. So much so that he lets his new wife and her bratty kids call his own flesh and blood names to the point that he doesn't even remember what she was originally called. And he allows them to make her do forced labor. And he pretty much lets his new family members get away with murder. I mean, it doesn't say so in the story, but I'm assuming since he doesn't even stand up to his daughter who's being abused, and this is like the medieval ages where he's supposed to be in charge of things. But our girl Cinderella takes it like a trooper and works hard and is courteous at all times to keep up with her mother's wishes. So much so that the forces of nature start to root for her. And she also starts training her ninja skills. This will come into play later. So, the fated ball comes along and the step-brats are totally stoked about it. Cinderella's kinda looking forward to it too, because all her life she's probably worked without one sick or vacation day, and she guesses that it's about time she cashed it in. So Cinderella's all, Step Boss, mind if I go to this party too? And Step Boss is all, you see this plate of peas? Yeah? I want you to gather them. Okay! Out of this pile of ashes I just dropped them into. Otherwise you can't go. What? Yes, ma'am. And so Cinderella set to her task. The birds around the area felt sorry for her, so they decided to help her out. I think singing might have been involved, but I'm not so sure. Point is, she got the job done with the help of her feathered friends. Check it out, Step Boss! I gathered your peas! That's great, child, because I just dropped some lentils and beans into the ash, which I'd like you to separate. Of course you did! I'll get right on that. So, once again, Cinderella asked or sang her birds into helping her with this task. Okay, so I've gathered the beans and lentils and separated them. Is there anything else you've done for me, oh wonderful Step Boss of mine? No, that'll be all. So I can go to the party now, right? Don't be ridiculous. You don't have a dress. Of course not, House. Silly of me. Whatever, honey. We'll be back in 3 or 4 days. If I find a speck of dust when I get back, I will flog you. Distraught and rightfully pissed off, Cinderella marched her way to the tree under which her mother was buried and started making wishes. I want to be the hottest girl at that party. Fortunately for her, trees under which dead mothers are buried equals magic, so she got her wish right away. The stories vary here about how she got there. In the original, it's never really stated. It's just that suddenly she's at the party. So I'm just gonna skip over it, or you can use your imagination and say it was a pumpkin or something. Either way, she gets there, and who should she catch the eye of than the prince himself? Dude! Because nobody argues with a prince, he wound up being the only one to dance with her, whether she liked it or not. Of course, all of the guests, including the stepmother and her brat daughters, were completely perplexed by who this mysterious woman was. After a few hours of dancing with the prince, Cinderella was all like, "Okay, it's been real, but I've gotta go. Bye." But unfortunately the prince couldn't get a hint, so he chased right after her. And this is where the supposed ninja training comes in, because Cinderella outruns a prince who has probably had military training since he could walk, and she does it in a ball gown, and maybe even high heels. No matter how far she runs, he still keeps up with her though, so she finally decides to shake him off by going up a tree. No, the prince doesn't follow her up the tree because A, he's not as athletic as I thought he might be, or B, he's just lazy. Fortunately for him, Cinderella's absentee father happens to be walking in the area. "Dude, there's a hot chick up the tree. Will you do me a favor and chop it down?" It's not like I was doing anything else tonight. So, when they chopped down the tree, they were surprised to find that nobody was in it. "Hey, do you know a girl who might live here?" "Well, there's my tormented daughter, but I don't think she's the one you're looking for." Now here's another reason to believe that she is a ninja, because she snuck down the tree while it was being chopped and ran back to the shack without anybody noticing her. And remember, she's wearing a ball gown. So off the two men go to the shack where Cinderella is forced to sleep, only to see her in rags and covered in soot. The next morning, I'm guessing Cinderella does some odd jobs, and when the night comes again, she goes to her wishing tree and wishes for a dress that makes her look even hotter than the night before. And this night goes pretty much the same. Cinderella arrives at the ball, who's the hottest thing there. The prince doesn't allow anybody else to dance with her, and she winds up running away early, with him chasing after her. The only difference is that this time she walks into a barn, and the prince asks the father to burn it down. I'm starting to question this guy's sanity. So again they check the shack, and once again she is dirty and ragged. So it's the final night of the ball, and the prince got a foolproof plan. He is going to pour tar on the staircase in hopes of catching her. Yeah, I'm starting to think inbreeding is involved in this line of royalty. So that plan goes as well as you might think, but he does get a shoe out of it, which is either gold fur or came with a typo glass. That's right, the classic glass slipper is the result of a typo. Look it up. So the prince decides to go with another one of his foolproof plans, and that is to marry the first woman who fits into the shoe. Here's hoping Cinderella has unusually small feet. So the prince winds up in Cinderella's pad, where she's busy scrubbing the floors or something. He doesn't really notice her. In another display of wisdom, the prince decides that it's a good idea to let the stepsisters try the shoe out in a different room, where there will be no foul play. Behind locked doors, the first daughter tries it, only to see that her toes don't fit. Of course, the stepmother resorts to cheating. Shocker. You have to cut your toes. Oh, but I like my toes! When you're rich, you can get new ones. And you'll never have to walk anyway, so it doesn't matter. Alright. So, the first daughter comes out with the shoe forcibly fitting on her. The prince, of course, doesn't notice anything suspicious at all. So, while he rides back to the castle, birds start singing about how bloody the shoe of the girl is. Let that sink in. Birds, animals that usually don't talk, had to point out the obvious to the guy who was sitting right in front of her. Maybe it's a brain tumor. So he comes back inside and he's like, dude, the birds told me that her feet are bleeding, so that makes her not the one, so the other one should try it on or something. So behind doors, pretty much the same thing happens with the second daughter, except she has to cut off her heels. Ugh, I never liked my heels anyway. So once again, the prince doesn't notice anything. And once again, the birds have to point out the painfully obvious. I just give up. So finally, the prince comes back with other daughter and asks, "So, do you like have another daughter or something?" "No," said Cinderella. "Idiots!" "What?" "Okay, dudes, bring her here." So they finally put on the shoe that's been bled on by both the stepsisters onto Cinderella's ridiculously dainty foot. Haha, it fits! I think I'm gonna hurl. And now we're gonna get married. Why? And I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't Cinderella be overjoyed to be with her Prince Charming? Well, as rich and powerful our inbred wonder might be, I don't think a girl runs away from a guy 3 times in a row without having problems with him. I mean, there's playing hard to get, and then there's just she's plain not into you. And so Cinderella was forced into a domestic life with a guy she barely even liked and forced to pop out babies for him. Well, at least she didn't have to clean the plate. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a pie to bake. She died. And he pretty much lets his new family members get away with murder. I mean, it doesn't say